this meeting of Saanich Council to order on Monday, December 14th. We've got a very it's a light agenda. If it's a heavy agenda, there's a lot of items on it. But I managed to we're going to get through it pretty quickly. I was going to deliver an annual address, and as I was composing that, I had some material that was provided to me by the staff, listing some of our accomplishments. I wasn't very happy with the speech that I wrote, and I decided rather than just deliver something, that I would go back and I would revisit it and deliver that in the new year and give it more of a forward-looking angle instead of just sort of recapping at the end of the year. So anyway, I apologize for that. And so at one of the January meetings, I'll deliver that address, and hopefully I can incorporate some of the ideas of the council members as they look to the future and see how we're going to do. So with that, I think we'll just move on with the agenda to item B, the adoption of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Oh. All opposed? None opposed. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item C, bylaws for final reading. Madam Clerk, would you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first item is the water utility bylaw. It's final reading of bylaw amendment 9365 to establish the 2016 water utility rates.
Move final reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
This item is final reading of the sanitary sewer amendment bylaw 9366 to establish the 2016 sewer utility rates.
Move final reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Next item, please.
And this next bylaw is final reading of the garbage collection and disposal amendment bylaw number 9367, again to establish the 2016 solid waste service fees.
Move final reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Next item, please.
This is final reading of the sanitary sewer amendment bylaw 9368 to include the property at 1516 Mount Dog Crossroad in the sewer service area.
Move final reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, at this time we're going to move on to public input. If you would like to speak on the items under E, F, and G on the agenda, and H. And item E is the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Bylaw. In F, we've got a tender for sanitary sewer lining. We've got consulting services for Wilkinson Bridge. We've got a request for funding of Gowan House. Council chamber renovations, lease agreements for municipally owned buildings, designation of councillors as acting mayor, park naming under committees, and we have some report from member of council hosting refugee families. If you'd like to speak to the council procedures bylaw or the youth development strategy implementation plan in the committee of the whole, you can save your comments for that portion of the meeting. For everything else, I welcome the first speaker up to the microphone.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Schmuck. I live at 1180 Rock Street, and best wishes for happy holiday season to everybody. I'd like to speak on item number F4, the council rental. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you folks up there like you were a number of while, but that really was a much better presentation. We were able to see all of you during the council meeting, so I really urge that to be restored as soon as possible. And also item G1, park naming. I just want to remind everybody that the Quadra Cedar Hill Community Association, which I'm president of, recommends the naming of the park Cecilia Creek Falls Park, as recommended by the Parks and Trail Commission. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Haji Charanya, and I reside at 757 Genevieve Road. Mr. Mayor, I would like to speak on E1 and F4. So E1 is the FIBA bylaw, and F1 is the chamber renovations and broadcasting. On E1, the bylaw 9369 needs clarification in my view. The Director of Legislative Services and the municipal clerk Are two heads responsible for two aspects of FIPA or only one performing duties when the other is absent? So that's a clarification. The second point, if there are two heads, who handles which aspects? That's not very clear in the bylaw. But in the discussion, I think it says, and I quote, the head will appoint both a privacy officer and an information officer, and will delegate to those individuals specific FIPA duties, powers and functions. This implies only one head, because it says the head. So I find the report and the proposed bylaw a bit confusing, and it needs a little bit of discussion and clarification. On F4, with all due respect to my colleague John, I'm most reluctant to spend $487,550, which is $500,000, for chamber renovations in the broadcasting. Also, given the probability of overrun, should you approve these expenditures, please be prepared to spend more in the middle of the project. I would suggest you do not spend this money because I don't find it necessary and essential. So save your money. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, councillors, staff, Ken Woodcroft, 1044 Inverness Road. I am here speaking to pardon me. Most of you, except for the three new councillors and the mayor on this, would know why I'm here. Basically, this is going back basically to the Quadra-City Hills Community Association's 2006 centennial request. And this park was basically put forward by the Community Association at that time as a centennial project. So it's been quite a long time coming for this naming, and the fact is that this is just one more step in the evolution of this legacy project. I'd also like to thank John Schmuck, the current president of the Quadra-City Hills Community Association, for respecting the hard work and that of past community executives and members. So I'm just hoping that you do support this recommendation from the Parks, Trails and Rec Committee. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, Your Worship, Council, staff. My name is Rebecca Merzrow and I live at 908 Arundel Drive in Saanich. I'm here this evening to speak to you on behalf of the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria. And for clarity, this is item H1. I'm a board member for ICA. ICA has been providing services to immigrants and refugees of the CRD region now for about 30 years and has been quite busy in recent times, as you can imagine, with all of the increased public awareness of these issues. And we really applaud Councillor Verglin's initiative to try to involve Saanich and the CRD in this file and ensure that any refugees arriving in the CRD region are provided with the services they need to successfully integrate into our communities. To this end, I want to bring to your attention that ICA has applied for funding from the provincial government to develop and implement an action plan that would deal with urgent refugee needs for those arriving in Victoria and literally in the coming weeks and the coming months. And I would suggest to you that if you are in agreement with the intent of Councillor Verglin's recommendations, that you may want to consider submitting a letter of support recommending that ICA receive this funding from the province. The second thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that Victoria currently is not among the cities in Canada that is identified as a destination for the government-assisted refugees that will be coming to Canada. And these are the large majority of refugees that our country will be receiving. The estimate by the current government is that there will be 25,000, and we're not sure of the exact timing. We as an organization feel that Victoria is perfectly suited to support refugees. For one thing, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in Canada. And I think we all agree that there are a lot of benefits, tangible and intangible, in having a more diverse society. So to this end, ICA is pursuing various channels, that is talking to elected officials at the provincial level and the federal level, most importantly, and trying to get Victoria on the radar as a destination for these government-assisted refugees. And I would encourage you in your individual through your individual connections to consider doing the same. So thank you again for bringing this on the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mehdi Najari, 1005 Leeds Place. I want to talk about the Freedom of Information Act. I know that you are under the government, British Columbia Government Act, and you have to follow that. But I was here when we didn't have this act. And I was a researcher and campaigner for Sierra Club. We could get as much information that we wanted promptly, without any delay, because the information will belong to the people. And that's how we went there and stopped logging in our watershed, because it was illegal. We could prove that they were logging for 50 years illegally. But after this act came in, right from the beginning, there was a group of journalists and critics that saying this act is a boondoggle. It's going to hurt the flow of information to the people. It's going to create a bureaucracy in every department of the government, which did. Now we have to pay 1 or 2 or 3 person to just look at this, when before you just go to the clerk in every department and get the information, or go to the libraries of Ministry of Environment or other Ministry of Health and get the information you wanted easily. Now we have to pay, the citizens have to pay for the information that they already paid for, created by their government. I just wanted to say, and we saw this just a few months ago, with the scandal of the provincial government not providing the information and deleting information. As soon as it comes to their attention that somebody is looking for information, they delete it and say it doesn't exist. This is nonsense. This is ridiculous. We said that Mr. Mary Rankin didn't listen. For 2 years we said you have to amend this. This is nonsense. The problem is very clear. There is the information that public can have, which is 98, 99% of information. There are a very limited information that public should not have, because there is, for example, a court case or negotiation with your union. Few items we can. Why not having free flow of information and designate those few areas that you need to review even before releasing, or you cannot release it? That's it. This is nonsense. This is really insulting. This is not freedom of information. This is freedom from information. And the big brothers always look at us and say, who is asking for what? If Mr. X is asking, give it to him. He can't do anything with it. If Mrs. Y is she's asking, she's very smart. She can really analyze. So we better be careful with what you are giving her, because she can cause problems. This is the calculus that the government and departments are doing now. Please go the other way. Maybe you have to respect what they are saying, but you can have an amendment to your freedom of information and create an open place for citizens to get the information that they deserve. On item of council chamber renovation, I just want to say that when this matter brought in, we all agree that it's wonderful to put it, webcasting it, but this amount is too much. I think we should look at to see if we can do it much cheaper, because it shouldn't be cost that much for webcasting. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? I'll call for a second time. Any members of the public that wish to speak? Calling for a third and final time. All right, thank you to everyone that spoke, and we'll now move on to item B on the agenda, bylaws for 3 readings. Madam Clerk, could you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first item is the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw. It is for 3 readings, and it will designate the Director of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk as the head for purposes under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And the intent of the bylaw will also repeal the existing updated bylaw that we have.
I move the recommendation. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Call. Councilor Plant.
Not a problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to ask a question of Mr. Laidlaw in regards to the comments that we received from Mr. Charania and the inconsistency that he was expressing around having 2 heads as they refer to a singular. Can you clarify how this, as it's being described here, I think as a housekeeping update, how you could respond to his concern?
That's an easy one. 2 heads are better than 1.
Mr. Mayor, I'll ask the city clerk to respond to that.
Thank you, Councillor Plant, and through the Mayor. The Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act does designate, allow the municipality to designate a head. By definition, that person or persons can actually be an individual or a group. So in the interest of our information or privacy program, it is determined that, as Mr. Mayor says, 2 heads are better than 1. So it would be that we would perform those duties of responsibility under the Act, both for protection of privacy and access to information.
Councilor Durham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilor Plant's question has cleared up one thing. I mean, clearly Section 77 says the head can be a person or a group of persons. And so in this case, we're choosing to have 2 people. As I understand it, this is simply cleaning up the fact that council cannot designate subordinate positions to those heads present under the changes of the Act. That is up to the individuals or individual we appoint as head, and then they decide what subordinates powers they would like to delegate to those subordinates. So I think this is a housekeeping item, and I'm happy to support it and move it. I also am taken by the comments from Mr. Nahari, and I tend to agree. The flow of information, I don't think, has become more facile under provincial law, but that legislation. But that's a different topic than for tonight. That probably involves a report to council and a fulsome discussion at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I've got a few comments of my own, and my comments actually relate back to the Privacy Commissioner's report. She released this on March 30th, and she made 5 recommendations, and we've largely followed her recommendations. But recommendation number 5, she stated, I recommend the District of Saanich implement a comprehensive privacy management program to ensure it is able to meet all of its obligations under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This program should include the appointment of a privacy officer, and I think what she was suggesting was that we have an officer at a level in the organization that didn't currently exist. That was my interpretation of it, based on the body of the report. And I wanted to know, and so my question to staff is, what has been recommended by Mr. Lukadelis, who came in to give us some advice, and where are we now?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. The report that you have in front of you in the bylaw is based on recommendations from Mr. Lukadelis. We believed he gave us the advice in terms of best practice, which we've incorporated in the report and also in the bylaw.
Okay. My next question then is, has there been, is staff planning to provide a report to council on Mr. Lugadales' recommendations? I know we've seen something internally. And I realize that Ms. McPhee isn't here, so...
Yes, that report will be coming to me and it will be shared.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? I'm going to show opposed. I don't think there's some direction we should be going. That motion carries. I think we need...
I'll move second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? I show opposed. Motion carries.
I'll move third reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? I shall oppose. That motion carries. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please move on to the next item, F1.
Mr. Mayor, this next item under resolutions for adoption is tender number 3215 for the 2015 sanitary sewer CIPP lining. The report of the Director of Engineering is recommending that Council award the tender to In Situ Form Technologies in the amount of $560,099.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Rogan.
Thank you very much. Just out of interest, who was awarded the last contract on this? The same company or a different one?
Through the mayor to Council Workland, I believe it's the same company.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Is the RFP for number 3515, Consulting Services, Wilkinson Bridge, the Contract Administration and Inspection Services. The report of the Director of Engineering is recommending that Council award the RFP to Parsons Inc. in the amount of $229,390.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? Questions for staff? Council Plan.
That's all right. I don't mind the friendliness. Question.
It's because of the closed meeting. That's.
It's all good. Question through you back to our Director of Engineering. This is the first time that I've seen an inspection services contract come in front of us that I'm aware of in my newness to the role. Is this something that could be done by staff? I appreciate kind of either of the two components, either the contract administration and inspection services. Is this a requirement, or is this just because we don't have the capacity?
Through the mayor to Councilor Platt, this has typically been done this way, that we provided a third-party contract administrator to help evaluate the tender document. It is something that we're trying to do a smaller scale case study, whether this can be done internally with our own capacity. There are some pros and cons to that. There is a limitation of capacity, but there is some difficulty when you get into some disagreements around the tendering. If there's disagreements about payment, it's much easier to have a third-party contract administrator evaluating those disputes.
Follow-up question, thank you, that's good to know. Follow-up question is, can you give me a rough estimate how much of this tender is for contract administration, how much is inspection? Because I'm assuming they break down into two separate roles.
Through the mayor and council plant, it's largely integrated as one. Typically, the inspector does the contract administration as well as on site on a fairly full-time basis, working with the contractor, talking as well at the same time about the inspection work, administering the contract and doing payments along the way.
So the inspection services, is this referring to an ongoing, or is this referring to once the project is complete?
It's referring to an ongoing practice of as the project is completing in different stages. Say contract sidewalk is completed, we're inspecting that along the way for compliance and quality control.
Okay, I know much better now. Thank you for that education.
Another question, Councilor Workman.
Going back to the price, what percentage is based on price and what percentage is based on experience? Just roughly, again, out of interest.
Sorry, and through the mayor and Councilor Worgland, I don't have that percentage with me at the moment. Price, I believe, is in the ballpark around 20% of the overall criteria.
Thank you.
Councilor Plant?
Thank you. Just an opportunity to learn as we go. Second question, just as a component of the entire project of the man upgrade and the bridge, can you please estimate what this 229 represents? And is this a new figure that's being added to the old project? It's not? Okay.
No, through the mayor to Councilor Plant, this is costs that are integrated in the overall estimate. I think the scale of this project is, I might have to get back to Mayor and Council on this, but I think it's around the $4.5 million mark.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, next item, please, Madam Clerk.
This next item is the request for funding. This is the Goward House ramp replacement. The report of the Director of Finance is recommending the Council approve the release of $9,000 from the building reserve for Goward House for the ramp replacement project.
All right. Councilor Bryce?
Move the recommendation.
Seconded. Do we need to hear from our Director of Finance? Councilor Bryce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pleased to support this request. Obviously, it's an accessibility issue. And I was very pleased to see that we had prudently been putting funds aside in this reserve account, which was a nice little piece of information. We're just basically moving the funds through from that accumulated fund. Since we have done in the last few years other improvements, I think at Goward we had put money into work on the deck at one point and an elevator or something, and I was just sort of curious as to why we now are able to trigger this particular fund. Perhaps the Director of Finance can help.
Thank you, through the Mayor. In the past, such as the deck project, it was an $85,000 grant, so I think at that time there was $1,500 in this account, so it wasn't sufficient to address those needs. So Council appropriated surplus for that purpose. In this case, the funds that have been accumulated are sufficient to address this, so it seemed appropriate.
Thank you.
Councilor Worgland?
Thank you very much. Through Director, how does Howard House choose the contractor on this?
I'm sorry, Councilor, we're going to have that information. We weren't involved in the actual project itself.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my question somewhat falls the same way. Would you know if there was some process through the Heritage Foundation or Heritage Revitalization Agreement or anything that approved the ramp?
Through the Mayor, again, I have no knowledge. This project came in as a funding request after the fact, so the process that was handled, I don't know if the Director of Engineering was aware of it, but the funding request has come in subsequent to the project being completed and finished.
Thank you.
Councilor Plant?
Thank you. I will certainly support this. Anytime we can have the federal government pay for 2/3 of a project, I think that's something we should make sure we take advantage of, so I support it.
Any more discussion? No questions for our Director of Finance? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion now. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next item.
This next item is the Council Chamber renovations and webcasting. The report of the Director of Engineering is recommending that Council approve the renovations outlined in the report at the total estimated cost of $487,000 and change, and also to approve the increase in the 2016 operating budget for ongoing operational costs, and to approve the appropriation from the 2015 operating budget to cover costs of relocating meetings during the course of construction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just make a couple of comments. This report has been a long time coming to Council. You will see that it's a complicated report and that it involves not only significant technology and estimates of costs, staff will be very careful to get the best estimates we can in order to move this project forward for your review tonight. We've also had council experiment with a different configuration to determine if that is perhaps a better system moving forward. And that took some time, and I think the response from council generally and the public has been quite positive on that. So we are pleased to present you with this report tonight. Staff are fully aware that this is a significant amount of money. The investment in this particular chamber hasn't occurred over the last 50 years with respect to technologies and some of the other things that are required. There's a lot of infrastructure here in terms of electrical that needs to support some of the systems moving forward. And we tried to position you in a state where, although you move this forward, or if you move it forward, there will be changes in terms of electronic agendas and other things coming as advancements, which we think you want the opportunity to participate in the future. So we've provided that infrastructure. So the issue of the infrastructure and the council configuration you have are tied together. We recognize it's very difficult to sort of take them apart, but we've tried the best we can on the report. And I realize this is quite complicated, and what we'd like to do is to give you a short PowerPoint presentation to show you what's proposed and allow any questions, Mr. Mayor, the council may have. So if we can just take a few minutes, I'll ask the Director of Engineering to take us through that.
All right, take it away. That'll be fixed with the new council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I'll provide us, as Mr. Laidlaw talked about, a short presentation around the council chamber renovations as well as the webcasting. The recommendations that are before us in the council report are a result of an interdepartmental collaboration, as well as work with expert consultants in the technology field who have experience implementing this type of webcasting and technology in other municipalities, as well as working with an architectural team that comprises of structural, electrical, and mechanical consultants.